Good morning and welcome to the first edition of the Silk Road webinar. Today the topic is the Russian ban lifted, a new development that we are all not very aware of yet, enough to be discussed here, and we're going to do that with 4 guests. 2 of them are already seated on the table, Ton van Hanenberg from the Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences and Sebastian Bennink from Wladimiroff Lawyers. You're a Sanction lawyer. And my name is Majorie van Leijen. I'm the editor of RailFreight.com and host of today. We need the audience, of course. We have a large audience. You don't see them, but they are there. We would appreciate it if you send in your questions. Please do so at any time during this webinar. The webinar takes an hour. Any questions you want to ask to these gentlemen, you can ask until 11:20. Then we will switch to 2 other guests who are eagerly waiting to present their information, and there is plenty of time to ask them questions as well. Other things, we will just start now. Let's start. So the Russian ban lifted. It's a new development, and as I said, we don't know a lot about it yet, but just let's introduce the topic. Maybe you can explain what exactly happened.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And as of the 1st of July of this year, the decree that included the prohibition of the transit of agricultural food and raw materials through Russia was amended, and effectively thereby the restrictive measures were lifted for that type of transit through Russia to third countries.
Yes, so that is now around 2 weeks ago that this happened. It's very important news for the new Silk Road. We all noticed. Why is that?
Yes, well, the Silk Road already started when we look at rail transport between China and Europe in 2011-12, and in 2014 the sanctions came from Russia because of the occupation of the Crimea. So from then on, a lot of products weren't allowed to transport through Russia.
And what kind of products are we talking about?
We're talking about agriculture products and food products.
And are those products in demand?
Yes, sure. Yes, they are really in demand. Surely in the parts of China which are, let's say, more economic developed, so that there really is a question for these products.
Yeah. And how important is Russia as a transit country on the new Silk Road?
Yeah, well, there are several possibilities to transport from Europe to China.
Mm-hmm.
One is by Poland,
Mm-hmm.
then you go Belarus, then Russia, then Kazakhstan, and then you come to China, the western part of China. And the other route is more to the east, then you pass again Russia, and then Mongolia, and then to China. And then there's another possibility that you really go to the far east, and then direct from Russia, again Russia, to China. So you could say that almost 100% of the traffic from Europe to China by rail go via Russia.
Yeah, we have 2 maps of that. Maybe we can shortly show it to the audience, just to see how important Russia is. Here you can see it very clearly. There is here. This is the Trans-Siberian route, and this is the route that brings you all the way through Russia. Then there is another route. That's the next map. And that is the more regular Silk Road. Can we have the next one? That is basically from Belarus a little bit through Russia and then through Kazakhstan. I think that's the most conventional route. And basically what that shows is that whatever you do, you have to go through Russia. It's very hard to avoid.
That's true.
There are some ways to avoid Russia. Which other ways are there?
Yes, well, of course you have to think that the Silk Road is quite new, and the sanction came quite quick. So a lot of products or people who want to transport or export goods to China aren't aware of the possibilities that the Silk Road offers. So let's say there are have been possibilities looking for opportunities to have other roads, and one of that was via Turkey, and that was quite complicated. You pass a lot of countries, you have to go by rail, but you also have to go by sea. You don't have to go to Iran because then you have other problems. So it's really complicated, and it's much more expensive and also longer transit time.
Yep. And you're saying that people are not aware of the real options. So which other modalities do they choose?
Yeah, if they already did their export to China, then it was by air when it was high value goods, and of course by sea if it was low value. Yeah.
So is this a great opportunity for all these shippers that are now doing air transport or sea shipping?
Of course, not all of them, but there is really a category of products. If you have the value of let's say a 40 feet container is about 300,000 euros or more to a few millions, then you can say, well, consider the rail connection to China.
Yeah. So now this is possible in theory. We're going to say in theory because we're not entirely sure how, when, and why. Can you explain why there's so much ambiguity around this new development?
Yeah, well, the Russian government didn't fully bring this in the news. This amendment was proposed and also concluded. Not publicly, and there hasn't been much public attention. And also, when I discussed this with my Russian colleagues, they say that they also were not entirely surprised, but they did had to look into the amendment and see what the exact conditions were for this change.
Yeah, and you had some research done by these
Yes.
Russian colleagues. What did you find out?
Yeah, well, there are several conditions applying for the transit. And one is that the transit has to happen via rail or via truck transport. And a second condition is that the cargo has to be sealed at the moment it enters Russian territory.
Sealed electronically.
Yes, sealed
Okay.
electronically.
Mhm.
And this is done via a global track and trace system that will be included on the cargo.
Mhm.
And the cargo has to be monitored through the entire journey through Russia.
Yeah.
Until it leaves Russia. And a third condition, but this only applies for truck transport, is that the truckers will need to apply for a specific way bill to go through
toll.
Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this monitoring, I think this is where it gets a little bit touchy. Which company is responsible for this monitoring?
Yeah, this is the same company that is responsible for the truck toll system in Russia, and the company is called RT Invest. And both shareholders in this company are companies that are both shareholders are sanctioned entities in the United States under the U.S.-Russia sanctions regime. One is a large Russian military company called Rostec, and the other shareholder is Igor Rotenberg, which is a close, he is closely related to the Russian government.
And why are these companies sanctioned, do you think?
Rostec, well, obviously because of its military background, and the Rotenberg family has close connections to Vladimir Putin, and the Americans saw fit to sanction them. And what is precarious is that, in theory, when you would pay toll in the Russian Federation for your truck transport, where you would do that via for instance, American Express card. The banks involved would not be allowed to process such payment because they would make a payment to a sanctioned entity, although that company itself is not sanctioned. Its shareholders are, and for that reason it would be not allowed to process that payment.
Yes, so
but that's in theory.
Yeah, that's in theory. But it actually, I think it has a lot of consequences for the shippers and the companies involved.
Well, you'll have to do some additional research into your transport, but I think it's anyway a very good thing before you export. products out of the EU, to be aware of what legislation applies to your export, and to consider which transport you want to go through, and what applies or what does not.
Yeah. You're a sanction lawyer, so you have a lot of people asking you information or advice about these sanctions.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of people happy with this news, you think?
Well, I can imagine if I hear what the economic benefit could be through a transit through Russia for transporters. I think a lot of transporters would consider this possibility, and it would be very beneficial for them. Yeah. But still, certainly for European companies, I would advise to strongly do their due diligence and do their compliance on how to make that transport work, and that they don't breach any rules or regulations, whether that is in the EU or in the Russian Federation.
Yeah. When you hear all of this, what is your first reaction? Is this good news or bad news?
Yeah, I think it's good news.
Good news?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because we did the research on, I see a question from Rob Brekelmans also about plants. Then you can see, yes, there were restrictions on that, and they seem to be away now. So you can consider now to transport your plants or bulbs or whatever through this new Silk Route.
So, Rob Brekelmans, you can now transport plants through Russia, well, theoretically. There is another question. Thanks for raising the topic of rail transit through Russia. What are the security risks for container transports when they pass by a Russian railway? A question sent by Ilya Smolentsov. Is that something one of you can comment on?
You want to take it?
No,
yeah, well,
yes.
from a legal perspective, you have to be aware that there is a certain possibility that this military company, Rostec, will be following your cargo. And that you should take that into consideration when choosing this option. The company responsible for the track and trace system is owned by a military company. So it cannot be excluded that this company is watching your cargo and watching which routes you choose and where your goods are destined.
Can you imagine this is a problem for companies or a barrier for companies?
Well, the containers are sealed when you come into Russia, so I think that gives some security feeling about your cargo.
Yeah. About the sealing, what should we imagine by sealing? I find it hard to imagine what that looks like.
From my experience, what I know is that containers are being sealed, in such a way that that the lock cannot be opened during transport, and that this is a specific lock which can only be opened by custom authorities.
So that is that actual tracking authority that can open.
Well, I don't know how this, or don't know yet how this practically would look like, but I could imagine that the same lock that locks the whole container includes the track and trace system.
Right. A question by Natalia Santos. Following this adoption of the presidential decree, the Russian government is asked to adopt implementing measures on a number of issues: border, crosspoints, transit procedures, precise means of tracking, registration of drivers. Does this mean that operators need to wait for these implementing measures before actually being able to transit Russia? Long but very good and valid question, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think indeed that you should only consider this option at the moment that you're fully aware of the legal implications this may have, and which conditions you should follow before you can enter this type of transport.
But it looks like if you do it on the border of Russia, that's the moment and the place where it happens.
Yeah, indeed. But I could also imagine that, for instance, for a truck transport, for the waybill, that there might be a possibility that you could apply for such a waybill in advance, so that you don't have any holdup besides the normal customs procedures to go through, and that it's just another document added to the export documentation that you already have.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that was sent to me yesterday evening that could help here as well. It was sent by Michael Blomster. He's a railway consultant in Sweden, and he's one of the first who's actually planning a journey through Russia with salmon from Norway to Finland and from Finland to China. So he's fully into the story, and he said the Russian government is opening a special department that will handle all transit traffic through Russia. Before you can send something, the sending must have the promising from this department. And the department was only set up last week, end of week 28, so that was last week. And we don't know yet how this department will and start working. So basically, we still don't know a lot of things, but it looks like we're going to depend on this department. Is that the same department as the track and tracing company, you think?
I could imagine. I haven't, or I was not informed about this special department. The only thing that I know is that, the company that will be involved in that track and trace system is already an existing company that handles a lot of transport through the Russian Federation, and I could well imagine that there might be a involvement of a Russian government institute that monitors all the transport. So that might be a very good option that the Russians choose for.
Yeah.
And I think it practically will be a very good solution if there's one to-go point to handle all the conditions before entering the Russian Federation.
Yeah, like a one-stop shop for Russian transit. Rob Brekelman sent another question. Importation of meat, veal and pig is restricted very much in respect of import and export licensing. Are these restrictions not more a hurdle than a ban of the sanctions for transshipping via Russia? So I think what he means is, are these products actually under the ban, or was it more a hurdle to transport these products until now?
As far as I know, it was under the ban.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think so.
it was not a hurdle. Maybe it also would be, or will be for the future, but the ban was the restriction. Yeah.
Nikita Struve asked, is transit of fruits to China via Russia allowed? And if not, how will it be organized? Is there any competition with road transport, and what kinds of goods are not allowed to be transported by train to China? Let's go first to the first question. Is the transit of fruits allowed to China at the moment?
At the moment it's not.
It's
no,
not.
No.
So, and it will be, thanks to this
yes.
lifting of the ban.
Although you have to be aware of the possibilities when you come to the rail terminals in Chongqing or Chengdu, if they are able and allowed to handle these goods too.
The practical side of the story, we're actually going to discuss with the two logistics specialists, because they are going to deal with this situation. So I suggest that one last question to these gentlemen. Where should we look if we want to keep track of all the updates and information?
Well, that is in Russia somewhat difficult. The Russian government doesn't publish everything centrally, but I would definitely recommend contacting a Russian advisor if anybody has an unawareness of the conditions that apply, and I would certainly advise to contact such an advisor in Russia.
Thank you. And where do you look for your information?
RGIVO, de Rijksdienst voor Ondernemend Nederland.
That's for the Netherlands, yeah?
Yeah, I think that would be the one I should look at.
Right.
But I looked at it a few days ago, and they didn't change anything. So
no,
it's
really very early still to get some information. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, both of you.
You're welcome.
And let's move to the next two guests.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for joining us. Maybe you can introduce yourselves first.
Hello everyone, I'm Xinyao from GVT Intermodal Freight Management, and it's my honor to sit here with the three other rail freight expert. And today I'm here and I'm willing to share the information that I know from China side and also maybe answer your question. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Oscar van Meij from the company New Silkway Logistics. New Silkway Logistics is a joint venture between two large logistics companies, and we have own fleet of reefer containers which are implemented on the New Silk Road. And I think for us the Russian ban is a big advantage, and I'm happy to share some more details today to you.
Okay, thank you very much. What was your first reaction when you heard this news?
Oh, for me, I think there will be more products is going to be shipped from Europe to China. That's my first reaction. But the second reaction is, oh, how how are we going to do it? Yes, because now like GVT Intermodal Freight Management, we have our own terminal, and we help to ship the products from the Netherlands to China. And then normally we ship because of the ban, we can only ship like beers, machines, and luxury cars, this kind of like general cargo. So maybe in the future there will be food products and also agriculture products to be shipped through this route. And small things, and as Tom mentioned, food actually is not totally banned now. Yeah, it depends how to categorize the food. As far as I know now, fresh food or frozen meat is not allowed, but other category like cookies, chocolate, now it's allowed to ship.
Powder milk.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
powder milk
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because I saw there's a lot of questions about the actual products that were involved in this. Can you add some products that are now not able to be transported?
Yeah, fruits, vegetables. There's a certain humidity request on this type of product. Yeah, we are able to implement this humidity control on our reefers. So this could be a solution as well to be shipped on the New Silk Road. And beside that, now poultry, meats, fish should have been lifted. But on the other side, yeah, what you said, cookies, bread, and milk powder was already allowed.
Yeah.
So this will increase the commodities on the New Silk Road, and we expect to double up the volume in 2020 if this ban is really lifted, and also all procedures are in place, like Sebastian mentioned before with the electronic seal.
Yeah.
This is vital for Russia to control that the goods will transit Russia and not end up in free trade in Russia.
A doubling of your volumes in 2020.
For us, yes, because
Yeah.
we have a temperature-controlled setup, and the ban was a really disadvantage for us. On the other side, we had time to implement for pharmaceuticals, other chemicals.
Doubling, is that also what you're looking at?
Yes.
A doubling.
Yes, because now currently the westbound volume is not full. It's like 80% full. So there are still like 20% kind of empty container goes back to China.
Right.
So like these places are waiting for the new products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have that same balance, 100% westbound and around 80% eastbound?
We have more eastbound than westbound at this moment.
Okay.
This is the commodity types that we transport a lot, with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
We take back a lot of electronics at the moment, but also different commodities, bicycles, shoes, depends. But at the moment, for us, we have more eastbound cargo, but this is also the focus that we had 3 years ago when we started with this company.
Is this going to change then? Because if you have even more eastbound traffic, because I think this type of transit is particularly interesting for traffic towards China.
Yeah, eastbound.
Yes. So isn't that going to create a huge imbalance then for your particular business?
Actually, I think we need to work together. More companies from China will also book via train, because the modality is still developing at the moment, also for the Chinese. And also with the trade war between the US at the moment, this is important for China and also for Russia to let more cargo pass via the New Silk Road. So I think there will always become a balance at a certain point. At the moment we have more eastbound than westbound, but on the end of the day, I think it will be a balanced flow.
Yeah, and for you it matches the need basically. If you're trying.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Because now currently the westbound we we have project. We ship the Lenovo laptop or Dell laptop from China to the Netherlands, but during the winter time we use reefer container, and we have to figure out a way to ship the reefer container back. So now it's a chance for us to ship the food with this reefer container go back to China.
Yeah. Reefer containers is the word I keep on hearing back.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit, because you are quite specialized in the reefer. What does the reefer do, and what kind of reefer is needed for this type of product?
Actually, 2 years ago, we started with this cold chain temperature controlled setup to China. We, as a company, believe in this can make the difference for us in the market. That is the reason we always believed in the fact that the Russian ban will be lifted at some point. But now this is there. We are ready to ship. We have a temperature controlled cold chain already at a mature setup. We have invested in 45 foot reefer, pallet wide, which is the standard in Europe. And we always thought, okay, we are not able to change China because they are lifting on the 40 foot size. However, we actually are changing China. More and more companies and more rail carriers are accepting this type of container. We have an 800 liter diesel tank, which allows us to keep the reefer running until the border Kazakhstan, China. And in fact, depending on the volume of the diesel in the container, we are able to fuel up at the border at that point. Actually, this is we have due to the cold temperatures in Kazakhstan, we have implemented several extra options to the container with a spoiler against the snow accumulation to the engine. We have moved the filters, which were heated up all the time, for freezing down all the time. Moved to a special box, which is heated by the engine. So our product, our reefer container, is a year-round solution.
And does it have? Is it also designed for these type of products, or do you need to amend anything before you?
At the moment, the containers are perfectly made for these kind of products, and the humidity control box, which I think a lot of plants and other type of products that need fresh air needs to be implemented. Will be implemented if the requests are there.
Yeah. You also mentioned that there is no lack of reefer containers in the market.
Yes, because there are still at our terminal there are still empty reefer containers is waiting for the cargo. Yeah. Now we can only use it during the winter time to ship the laptops or other electronic device, and maybe during the summertime we do use it for the wine, but just for a short period. It's not that common to be used.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the capacity of the track? Is there enough capacity on the current routes to handle the growing volume? Because you both spoke of a doubling of the volume.
Yes,
be handled.
Yes, I think from my company, there are several things we have to do. For the pre-carriage, we have to think about how to pick up the cargo with the reefer container, and also how to storage it in our terminal. And during the way, if the reefer container already be shipped, then that's not a problem. But maybe for the China side, there are several provinces already have the real connection with the European country, so they have to think about how to maybe build up a new terminal to accept this kind of cargo, or do the inspection, or do the customer clearance. I think there are several things they have to do in the future.
Yeah. You also said warehouses,
yes.
Cold warehouses.
Yes, because if you, as he mentioned, this kind of reefer container on the rail connection needs the fuel to do the temperature control. But once it arrives in China, if you keep using the fuel maybe it's very expensive. So maybe we can cross dock out of the container and store it in a special cooling warehouse in China, and maybe will be easier and cheaper.
And which destinations in China are most interesting at the moment for these products?
Yes, like yeah, currently like from Chengdu to Tilburg is the only real connection from the Netherlands to China. So I have to say Chengdu. Yes, but actually there are more like real connection between China and Europe. Like for instance, Chongqing and Duisburg and Suzhou and Hamburg. This kind of real connection, and these kind of cities in China will also be benefits from these kind of rules. And yeah.
And where is the demand in China? Which cities demand these products?
What we see at the moment is South China, Guangzhou area, Shenzhen, and East China, Shanghai region, Suzhou, Hefei. These are the regions. Also North China plays an important role, also due to the fact that the routing to North China, to Shenyang, Harbin, that area, that the train route will pass via the northern route. So it will take to complete Russian routing. So this is also for there. I think it will increase a lot of volume on the trains.
Yeah.
From both sides, as well for China, as well for Europe.
Yeah. Now, one last thing I want to point out before we go to some questions. The border is known to be congested on the traditional route, and we just heard from Sebastian that most probably the sealing or the inspections need to be done at the border. Do you foresee any trouble here?
As this is an implementing development at the moment, if it was easy, everyone can do it. So there, I think there will be some starting hiccups. Will not have massive impact because it's not one traditional routing. There are many more routes at the moment, and this is also going back to your previous question. That is the capacity on the rail enough to handle all these goods? I think yes, there is a lot of capacity still to be filled with volume. More and more countries are connecting to this. More and more stations will be built or will be new constructed. Also, Kaliningrad is a Russian ground, so this could also be a solution to add electronic seal.
Can you shortly explain what Kaliningrad means? What it can do and mean for the...
It's a Russian ground, so if there are already trains passing via Kaliningrad towards China.
It's a Russian enclave, right?
Yeah,
so
yes.
You basically go out of Poland, enter
Kaliningrad,
and
there
or to Latvia, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
And there we can add this. It could be a possible solution to add electronic seal, but also maybe Malezovice-Brest, which is the traditional routing, I think.
Yeah.
There are more options. So that depending on the volume, which will grow, and the implementations of the countries, it will be solved automatically.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to some questions. Ilya Gorbunov is asking, is there currently a working reverse solution allowing to go on the Silk Road trains and keep stable below 0 temperature within the set range?
Yes, the reefer container can control the temperature between -20 degrees towards 20 degrees, so 0 is not a problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we have also online connection with our reefer container, so we can even change the set point from office. We call it two-way command. So we have direct communication with our containers.
Yeah.
So the range of the set point of 0 degrees is not an issue. We are actually moving already these kind of goods.
Okay. A question from Colijn Liebeton to Oscar. You say that food flows may double on the new Silk Road. What is the share of this on the total cargo volumes?
It's difficult to say a number, right? Because not all freight forwarders offering temperature-controlled goods, and the goods that we speak about at this moment are temperature-controlled. I think for our point of view, our company, we will double up with volume because we have the temperature control solution in place, but I do believe there will be more competition, and I do believe that other companies will also invest in reefer containers and in development. But at the moment, I dare to say that we are the most developed temperature controlled logistics service provider who can offer this to China. So that's why I think that we will double up our volume.
How do you look at this?
Yes, I think like we are kind of doing the operation part, and yes, and like on every train there are 41 containers in total. Maybe now, and it departures 5 times from China to the Netherlands and from the Netherlands to China. Maybe in the future, like the departure will be increased in the future. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have something in mind?
And no.
No plan?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's yeah, our real port Brabant terminal will decide it, not me.
Do you also have new destinations in mind now this news has come?
And that's a secret actually.
Okay, I asked a secret question.
Yeah, yes. As far as I know, maybe we are working on to like looking for new real connections in China, but hasn't decided yet, so I cannot say anything until this moment.
Okay, we'll wait for that. Ukas Sirja, I hope I pronounce it correct. Which terminals in China have a large number of reefer containers ready to transport to Europe? The amount of reefer containers depends on localization.
Yeah, it depends on the request. We have a temperature controlled solution to Chongqing. There we also have an own office, and we have direct connection with the customs in China. And we are able to use a cold warehouse if needed to. However, our reefers keep running on diesel also when they custom clear the goods or prepare a transit document to East China. In fact, with the cargo that we currently load, we do not reload into cooling wagons or what other type of modalities. Our reefer goes to the final end location. Can be a custom zone, can also be the final destination at the Constant site, and at that point, that's the risk of our company. How do we get the containers back to the place where we load again? And that's why we have a year-round solution. We do have customers in South China, in North China, and in East China where we can load back in our reefers, also as a dry unit. So we have a constant flow circulation of our reefer containers, and in this way we don't need to unload the cargo at a certain point. It will, how it's loaded in Europe, it will be unloaded in China.
I believe there is also a policy in China that not every province is allowed to accept accept every product.
Yes, there are something like that. Like for instance, if you want to ship the flowers from the Netherlands to China, and you have to go to certain like customer office in China, for example in Kunming, to do the inspection and customer clearance first, and then distribute the cargo to the destination. So I believe for the food products or agriculture products, there will be something like that. In certain province, you have to do the clearance and the inspection first, and then distribute your cargo to the destination.
So is China currently setting up a new network when they heard about this news?
Actually, this kind of a little bit weird for me, because I live in Europe, so I heard lots of this kind of news from like my colleagues or from other people. But in China, and I also asked several friends who also work for the real logistic department, they haven't had any like certain information yet. But I believe the government is working on it. Maybe that's Chinese way. When it is official, then like the people will know. But until now, I believe the government is working on it, and I'm also looking forward to hear anything from like certain information from China. Yeah.
So that also means that once that is being decided, customers in Europe have to check where they can actually.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Alexander Lit, good afternoon. I would kindly ask the comment speakers. Okay, this is a practical comment. Okay, we have to increase the I thought increase the volumes of our microphones, but that's not the case. Increase the volumes of transit through Russia and the bottleneck with European infrastructure on the Polish border. What is your opinion on alternative routes via Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg?
I think this will, because Russia has a big impact on the decisions made here, this can only be beneficial. Kaliningrad, St. Petersburg, maybe even make an additional transit document in Moscow or something like that. I think this will be an advantage for the coming months and the coming years. because at the moment we were only able to make transit documents in Malasevice, Belarus. And now I think if we can make use of the Russian platform as well, it will be more easy, but also more volume will be loaded on the train. So this is a large development, but I think a positive advantage for logistic service providers, but also for fruit and farming companies.
Okay. That brings me to another route, the Middle Corridor. That is the route via Turkey. As Ton mentioned, that's an alternative route that some people used if they wanted to bring these products to China but wanted to avoid Russia. Is this route now in decline when we hear about this news? What is the future of this route?
We believed in this routing for a while. However, there's the rail is. If you go back to the original idea for the customer to choose rail, is also the transit time.
Yeah.
And we believe that because this is not so developed at the moment yet, that the transit time will be
Much more
a deal
longer.
breaker here. Especially now with the lifting of the embargo. So I don't think it will develop very fast, but it is still a solution. Actually, we are testing on this, but we think the transit time will be a hiccup here.
And how is this for you? Do you test on this route as well?
No, we mainly focus on the rail connection from Chengdu to China. We never tested any like shipment via that route.
Yeah, but was it a specific?
Yeah, as he mentioned, like if the clients choose the rail connection, they focus on transit time. Like for instance, the rail connection from Chengdu to the Netherlands is take around 15 days. If we go to Turkey and by sea, like go back to Europe, maybe it will take longer times. Then maybe at that moment the clients would rather choose by sea rather than by rail, right?
Yeah. So this basically will reshuffle the whole balance and the cards of the new Silk Road.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. Hoopverbaan, is there already a possibility to transport special equipment such as open top and flat track containers? And if so, what are the weight and dimensions restrictions?
I know there are developments there. We also moved. I know open top is possible. Flat track so far we haven't got. We didn't do it yet, so I'm not able to give you a clear answer on this. But open top containers are possible. 20-foot containers are possible. 40-foot, 45-foot size LCL. But if you look at 3 years ago, it was not. It was only 40 foot. So it's also growing, and China is adapting to accept more different type of containers on the trains.
There's also something that happened in China on the restrictions of dangerous goods, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is, and it still has the like forbidden to ship a dangerous good to China by rail.
But it's changing.
No.
No? Okay,
No,
I
still
heard
not.
so.
No.
There is a question that was sent in by email in advance from Javier Welkens, and he's from the company Freight Train No. So he has a different perspective than you here. And he is asking the role and the volumes of the southern European ports, such as Genoa and Piraeus. Is this, in your expectation, is this going to increase the role of these ports or not?
Yeah, I know China has a big influence on Piraeus at the moment, and I think they will implement fast ferries or fast ocean ferries to between Shanghai and Shenzhen to Piraeus. If we look at the rail, there is still a lot to improve. There is still a lot development ongoing. It's hard to say what other already stable routings to Greece and Italy at the moment. So far, we don't see it. There are stable routings from Benelux, Germany at the moment. Spain is upcoming, but also other countries are trying and lifting on. But if they don't have enough volume at the moment, they will always go back to Hamburg or Duisburg, and from there it will be consolidated on our trains. So it's hard to say what will be the impact on sea freight. I think it will have some impact, but it's I think if you ask me this question after 1 year, it's more clear also what the future will bring to this.
Because these ports, I mean, these southern routes, are they also affected by the Russian ban? These routes via Italy and
No.
UK?
No,
No.
not totally.
So actually, they can be. They're
I do
independent
think
of
this
this,
ban, even rail was already a perfect alternative for air freight products, and a lot of fresh food products are
to
be transported by air at this moment, and this could be a perfect alternative to move from air to train. But I still do see that we are an alternative for sea freight, but then there the price could be a deal breaker. But for fresh foods, fresh goods, it could be absolutely an alternative.
Yeah.
That's why I still think that we will develop the volume, not only us, but all companies that offer a cold chain solution.
Yeah. Let me see. Andy Billington asked a question. Can you just confirm that Kaliningrad can definitely be used for applying the border seals, direct transit to China with no intermediate inspection requirements? I'm afraid you cannot be sure, but
No, cannot be sure. However, we are already moving trains via Kaliningrad, so we are also able in Kaliningrad to fuel up and do a reefer inspection for ourselves if needed to. This is based on, depending on the Russian authorities and the Russian customs, what kind of procedure will they add in place? Is this the custom carrier guarantee, or is this the electronic seal, or maybe a combination of this? But I do think Kaliningrad will have a very important role on this routing.
Yeah. And Xenio, when you study the opportunities, what is the role of the logistics provider? Which part in this story of the new rules in Russia is your responsibility?
Yes. Yes, I think like we can see like for 3 parts. First part is pre-carriage, is like where do we pick up the cargo and what documents is required for the certain cargo, and before it load on the train, all the documents has to be complete. Yes, and when the cargo is on the train, then there is no problem, and after the train arrives in China, and the customer broker also have to check their documents. Also, maybe also is possible to like recheck all the cargo again. There will be an inspection in China. So I think the documents, if it's complete, is really important step. When you want to ship this kind of cargo to China.
And do you expect the documentation requirements to change now with these new rules?
I think there will be more and more documents is required. Yeah.
And is it also possible that the sealing needs to be done at the point of departure, or you think it will be done at the border with Russia?
No, the sealing is only for the Russians to protect that the cargo will not end in the free trade area. So it needs to be done at the Russian border. But maybe in the future that
they all have agreements
that the seal is added already at the loading point, or even at port of departure. But at the moment it's only from border to border for Russia, to make sure that the goods are transiting Russia.
But would it benefit you? Would it be beneficial for you as a company to include that in your services and to say that, okay, once we depart from Europe, everything is sealed and we make it go all the way to China? Would that be a good solution?
I don't think the seal which will be added at the loading point will be cut off. I think there is a tracking device will be added to the container. So for us, it doesn't make any difference. And together with the multimodal railway bill, which we have invested in and developed, we can link the rail documents already together, the SIM, SMGS, the CMR document. So this combination of the electronic seal, the cold chain, and the multimodal railway bill makes it happen that the smooth transit is secured.
There are already a lot of companies offering their track and tracing services. Are they now going to disappear? Now the Russians are going to take over this responsibility?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I know like now the container is already with GPS system, but if the rules comes up and the Russia government requires using their own GPS system, we have any other choice, right? We have to follow.
Yeah.
I think the companies which offer satellite connection, they will take the lead on the large volumes, because then you have coverage also in Kazakhstan, Russia, other countries. they will, I think, win this GPS
Competition.
competition.
Okay. I want to say to everybody who sent in a question that was not answered that we will send these questions to all of the speakers. Also, if you have questions to the previous guests, send them in. We can send them to you afterwards, and they have all offered to answer them. Now, last but not least, I would like to invite my colleague, Arie van Dijk. Arie, you're also working for ProMedia, the organization behind this webinar.
Exactly, yes.
And I believe that, as we can see here in the background as well, there is a European Silk Road Summit coming up. Can you tell us a
Yes,
little
of course,
bit,
yeah. First, I would like to say I'm very happy with this webinar. I'm very happy that so many shippers and customers are finding their way to the Silk Road. When we started in 2014 paying attention to this new connection, a lot of people told us, well, it's a hype, stop with it, it doesn't have any volume, there's so many restrictions. And now we see as the years pass on, all restrictions are being lifted and more steady developments and steady connections. And we are very happy with that. And of course, we've been paying attention to it with our events. And it's also growing. So like you said, we're organizing the European Silk Road event. And we're really happy with that.
Because this is the third edition of the event, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. But we also went to Poland, and we were in Gdansk and Wrocław, and it's also for a big part about the Silk Road connection.
So what are the topics this year? Is there anything new?
Well, it's going to be a 2-day event because there's so much to talk about. At first, we only paid attention to the connection and is your cargo safe and how does it work and the real basics. But now more and more there are different routes developing. There are different types of cargo. The equipment is going ahead very seriously. The reefer container of New Silk Road Logistics. I was very impressed to see what they are developing. So we're going to pay attention to all those different developments. So and also we are going to invite a lot of shippers to tell their story. What has led them to make the transfer to the new Silk Road? A lot of shipment is coming from air freight, and they are really looking. So this is a good alternative, of course, also for ocean, but exactly in air freight with the high value commodities. It's interesting to see what they can do, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to that.
Yeah. What is the date of the conference? You can see it
26th and 27th of November. And it's going to be in Venlo.
Venlo, yes. Why?
We choose Venlo because it's a real intermodal hub in Europe. And this time it's not only in Dutch, but it will be 100% English because we are going to invite people from all over Europe to attend this new event. And we're very happy with a lot of support of the partners here on the table, but also Port of Rotterdam, Nunneler, and so on. A lot of companies who back the new Silk Road are going to be there and going to tell their story.
Is this just the third edition of many editions to follow?
Well, we're seeing an increase every year. I'm very happy to follow it. So who knows? Who knows? For sure, it's going to be on the agenda for the coming years.
And what about this webinar?
This webinar, this is the first, and well, if I see how much response we have gained in the last hour, I think perhaps we'll do another couple of webinars up front till November, but let's see.
Yeah, so maybe we can ask the audience as well to send in topics that you would like to see discussed in the webinar, so we can host new webinars about the topic.
Yes.
Now it's just about counting down till November until we see you again. Is Russia going to be one of the topics discussed?
Of course, yeah. And I heard you saying earlier in this conversation, where can we find developments? Well, I would urge everybody watching, follow RailFreight.com, and we'll keep you up to date with all the developments and on the program and so on. So don't miss it.
Okay, thank you. We are going to have a replay of this webinar as well on RailFreight.com, so everybody can watch it again. And the questions, as I said, will be answered, but also a report will be published on RailFreight.com about some of the questions answered here and about all the information provided by the speakers. So then I would like to thank you as well for your great contribution, and of course thank you audience for all the questions asked. Apologies for any questions not answered. They will be answered soon, and we're hoping to see you back in the next webinar.